Welcome back, Tribe. Have one here from How Money Works. If we tax rich people, they'll just leave. We can't do that, but America can.
If effective taxation is being discussed, there is one counter-argument that comes up more often than any other.
Record number of millionaires are expected to relocate internationally this year.
800,000 New Yorkers are prepared to leave the city.
An estimated 16,500 very rich people will leave this country this year.
Yeah, that's right. If we try to tax rich people, they are just going to leave, taking with them their money, their jobs, and their businesses. Ironically, if all the rich people leave, then we won't even get the taxes they were paying, which means that by trying to increase revenue, we might actually end up shrinking it. Capital flight or tax flight has become a massive focus around the world once again, particularly in the UK and now in the newly formed Socialist People's Republic of New York City, because they are at risk of losing the very individuals that shaped their economies into what they are today. Headlines have been flooded with high-profile people either leaving or threatening to leave these places and go somewhere more accommodating like Miami, Dubai, Singapore, or Switzerland. But the question is, would that actually be such a bad thing?
You can't decide whether to leave the state or the country.
Time to move on and leave the state of California permanently, and we're going to go to Florida.
Making a big move. He's heading to Miami, or at least has been there for quite some time, and it comes with an added bonus. No state income tax.
Don, we're talking about Elon Musk moving from California to Texas.
I'm leaving.
Okay, then. That was always allowed.
There's a theoretical concept in economics about the relationship between tax rates and actual tax revenue. If tax rates are very low, then naturally tax revenue will also be low because not many people are willingly going to send a check to the government. As rates increase, so does revenue, but only up to a point. Eventually, if you raise taxes any higher, it will actually result in lower overall revenue because business activity is disincentivized, or yes, indeed.
The problem is, and I know he'll probably mention, and I haven't seen this, but this happened in Norway. They upped the taxes on their top 1% people, and then they tried to get, I don't know how many hundreds of billions of extra in revenue, and that ended up losing like hundreds of billions in revenue when the richest, I don't know how many of them left for Switzerland. They basically based every operation they had in Switzerland, which was much cheaper. They closed that loophole, but the United States isn't Norway. The United States isn't the UK. We are the capital of the world. We are the economic engine of the world in terms of spending and the size of the market and disposable income of its people. Americans spend way more than everybody else. All these major businesses can't afford to leave the American market. You can leave the UK, you can leave Norway, it doesn't matter. It's a small part of the pie. But to leave America is like a death knell for your company. You can't. America is in a very unique position where if it wanted to, it can force everybody back. It could force all manufacturing back. It could force all these companies that offshore in Ireland and use it as a tax haven to come back to the United States, pay taxes in the United States, and hire American workers. We already saw just little threats of tariffs that didn't even go through. Companies already pledged hundreds of billions of dollars into the United States. Like Apple, I think was like 600 billion or something like that over 10 years. I don't even know what the numbers were. I think they pledged over $1 trillion to start moving, shifting manufacturing back just for the threat of tariffs. That may not even, it probably won't outlast Trump and they're getting overturned. But you got a glimpse of what happens when you force companies to do the right thing. Stay in your jurisdiction in the United States, pay taxes so that we can make life better for everybody else. Pay what you owe in the system you're operating in. But these companies don't want to, so they'll just park their operations offshore, use the tax loopholes to pay next to nothing, and then suck up all that profit and then use it to pay out who? Shareholders? So nothing comes back. And then the gall to then fire, like Amazon fired 30,000 Americans just recently, replaced 10,000 of them back with H-1B Indians. The other 20,000 was all AI replacement. And then leaked memos internally came out saying that they want to eliminate as many as over 600,000 workers. How many of those are going to be Americans? And how many of those Americans are getting replaced with cheaper H-1Bs or outright overseas or AI? While they're earning incredible amounts of profit and offshored everything into these tax haven countries, so their tax rates are effectively less than yours. That's crazy, man. It's criminal that this is legal, but our system is owned and operated and ran by powerful lobbying groups, the donor class, multinational organizations like this. We live in a corporatist environment, excuse me. They run our country. It's like the battle we have today is corporatist Democrats versus oligarchic Republicans. That's the two battles that are going out right now. That's it. That's what you're really fighting for. When you see it from that lens, you understand why the corporatists want no borders, cheap workers, mass illegal immigration, right? And then you have the oligarchs and what they want: mass control, mass censorship, huge power and sway in politics. They've infiltrated every arm of our government. They're essentially acting as barons where they garden off wherever piece of the pie that they control and continuously enrich themselves while exerting more and more control to tighten their grip on power so that they're never getting knocked off by competitors either. Think about it.
Because people will move to somewhere else with lower taxes. Plotting out this relationship gives you what economists call the Laffer curve, named after Arthur Laffer, who popularized the idea during, well, you guessed it, the Reagan administration. Now, the idea itself is not inherently wrong, but it requires a lot of nuance, and without that, it's often used in really dumb ways to justify equally dumb fiscal policy. The first problem is mistaking exactly where on the graph most places exist. Pundits for lower taxes will say that we are on this side of the graph, which means that if only we lowered rates, it will stimulate more economic activity and actually result in higher total revenue, which can be used to fund government programs or pay down debt. It's a neat idea that you have probably heard a lot before, but it's not really backed up by most data. A 2017 study conducted on 27 OECD countries found that almost all of them were unsurprisingly on this side of the graph, where raising rates on top earners would simultaneously raise tax revenue. Out of all of the countries in the study, the biggest gap between the actual tax rate and revenue maximizing tax rate was in Mexico, Slovakia, and the United States. Now, the reason why this...
Let's see those numbers. Hold on. So the United States is at what? 48. Current top tax rate, 48. The curve peak, 76%. Slovakia is only at a 30%, 36% tax rate, and its curve peak is 65%. So essentially what you're seeing is to get to the 100% number, which represents the absolute peak before diminishing returns and losses begin, everybody is undertaxed at the top rate. The top rate is undertaxed. That's crazy.
States. Now, the reason why this gap was so big was more than just simply the fact that we don't tax as much as most of our European counterparts, but we will get to that soon. For now, despite what you may have been told, the analysis overwhelmingly suggests that we are indeed on this side of the curve. Now, in the interest of fairness, the second mistake that people make by trying to read these lines is assuming that the one and only goal of tax policy is to milk the maximum possible amount of money out of people. The revenue maximizing tax rate and the optimum tax rate are not always the same thing. Lowering rates can be a good way to give average households a budgetary reprieve, or higher taxes can be used on vices to try to stem their use. But the biggest mistake of all is the assumption that most rich people choose their home by sorting low to high on a global tax database, and they are ready to jump ship the second the bill arrives. The reality is a lot more nuanced than that, to put it generously. The 2024 Global Wealth Report by UBS found that European countries with higher tax rates generally had a higher rate of wealth growth over the last 15 years, even after including high net worth immigration. Globally, the countries with the highest median wealth per capita all generally had very high and progressive rates of taxation on income and consumption. Closer to home, people have been threatening to leave places like New York for decades now. And yet, even after adjusting for inflation, their millionaire populations are higher than they have ever been before.
New Yorkers are going to flee. They're going to flee New York because of Zohran Mamdani.
To my liberal friends who keep saying, well, tax rates don't matter, then why is it, Sean, that everybody is leaving New York?
Don't you see what's happening even in New York City? They're running out of money. Why? Because the rich people are moving.
Those are all conservatives. I'm telling you, oligarchs want to protect their cash, and they pay and fund these right-leaning institutions, mouthpieces, think tanks, all this shit. So that's why they want lower rates. They both, the reason you don't get lower rates for the top rate tax rate is because both corporatists and oligarchs benefit from that. So it's in their interest to just pretend, they'll just pretend like they're trying to talk about tax reformation and then nothing happens. Really, they're just constantly lowering tax. Like the big beautiful bill was a tax cut for the rich. Are you surprised? You shouldn't be. It's a clown show. It's all a charade. You don't get to pick your candidate. They got the winners lined up already from each side. And they're going to do exactly what they want them to do because they finance their campaigns. This is the game, and this is why it's a big club and you ain't in it, and it's rigged. And if you track the policies that help corporations versus people, Year over year, corporations are getting more and more legislation that's beneficial to them, while you, the average American, are getting legislation that is a detriment to you. Quite literally, the government works for corporations, not its people.
New York's population of millionaire earners, that has nearly doubled since 2010. There are 34,000 New Yorkers making at least $1 million or more.
New York City is not even a particularly difficult place to not live in for tax purposes, because if you really wanted to, you could go and live in New Jersey and commute in every day. If you are particularly wealthy, you could do what a lot of hedge fund billionaires do and live in Miami and make sure not to spend more than 182 days a year in your New York holiday home. Extreme examples like this do happen, and they get a lot of attention from everybody when they do, because one side of the debate uses it to highlight how ultra-wealthy people dodge and skirt around laws so we should tax them more effectively, and the other side uses it to highlight how ultra-wealthy people dodge and skirt around laws so we shouldn't bother trying at all. But for all of the attention they get, they are rare, and overwhelmingly for most wealthy people, the business opportunities available in New York against the inconvenience and cost of commuting just make it worth paying the slightly higher taxes. Now, that would be the end of that, if only it wasn't for the curious cases of California and the United Kingdom. So it's time to learn how money works to find out if a max exodus of rich people is actually a problem. This video is sponsored by Brilliant, the interactive learning platform. Okay, so it wouldn't be fair to talk about rich people fleeing without talking about the UK. According to some estimates, the UK lost almost 10,000 high net worth individuals in the last calendar year to net outward migration. Now, some people have highlighted some structural problems with the Henley & Partners report on which this is based, and we will get into that. But overall, their methodology is at least somewhat consistent over time, and it does draw on expertise and collaboration from a wide range of industry professionals and global bodies. The point is, it shows that the UK was once a magnet for global wealth as people were attracted to its accommodating financial center and high-end amenities that catered almost exclusively to the ultra-wealthy. But over time, the country, and in particular the City of London, saw that these wealthy people were causing some problems. I made a video about this just 3 months ago, so I am not going to give you the whole spiel. But the cliff notes are, they drove up home prices, they turned the financial system into a laundry machine, and they didn't actually contribute that much to the economy relative to the concessions that were made to attract them. Yeah, sure, some global billionaires hired a lot of maids and service staff, but the average Brit probably wouldn't consider being a butler to Boris war crime ski an ideal economic outcome. Now, to be fair, there were higher skilled roles like financial services that developed around these wealthy individuals as well. But a 2022 paper found that a majority of this work was done offshore anyway, providing questionable benefits to the country. As policies were introduced to curtail money laundering and actually get something out of all the wealth that was being parked in London, these wealthy individuals did indeed start leaving. The exact numbers are up for debate, but wealthy people are moving out, primarily to places like Dubai that are becoming what London was 10 years ago. A low-tax money laundry with some Gucci stores stapled on. So yeah, millionaire exoduses do happen, but London is more of the exception that proves the rule. When a country was filled up to begin with by people just looking for the best deal for them and their money, then of course those are the same kind of people to move on just as quickly when a better deal becomes available. Competing in a race to the bottom to be the lowest bidder for a few thousand wealthy individuals looking to pay back as little as possible is a losing proposition. Even if you win, your prize is a collection of people with no local attachment who by definition don't want to contribute. But even while all of this was happening, the number of millionaires in the UK actually increased. This homegrown wealth is also much less likely to leave because, well, it's their home. Most people, even those with extremely high incomes, aren't going to leave their home cities, social networks, families, customs, and way of life over some tax savings, and that's assuming that they even could. On a small scale, we saw this play out over the last 5 years between California and Texas. Moving between states is easier than moving between countries. This enabled a lot of remote workers and entire businesses to shift from expensive, high-tax cities in California to more business-friendly, cheaper, and lower-tax states like Texas. But as people were forced back into offices and the AI bubble started blowing back towards a proven tech hub, places like Austin are facing serious shocks in their housing market, which had boomed on the expectation that these temperamental tech workers would keep on coming forever. The channel Upton did a great on-the-ground video on this a few months ago, so I will leave a link to that in the description. A lot of wealth in an area is tied to that area itself, and even more comes from its institutions. In that 2017 study on the Laffer curve, America had the highest revenue maximizing tax rate out of all OECD countries because we have so many domestic industries that generate enormous fortunes. A wealthy American could renounce their citizenship and move overseas for lower taxes or more accommodating regulations. But almost nobody does it, because having unfettered access to Silicon Valley, Wall Street, American real estate, or a financial system is worth more to most wealthy people than some tax savings.
Exactly. And that's what destroys the argument that we cannot tax the top rate percent. Increase it, I mean. That literally destroys everything. Where would you go overseas that could replace the American market? You can't. There's nowhere. It makes no sense to. But if you're a small country like the UK or Norway, it doesn't matter. You can leave wherever you want because the markets are all overseas anyways. America is the market. The rest of the world is like a cherry on top.
The study's method found that we could set top marginal tax rates as high as 76%, and most people would just have to suck it up and pay it, because leaving would have a higher opportunity cost. This study wasn't suggesting that we should do that, but it was suggesting that the idea that raising taxes would lower revenue wasn't grounded in reality. Now, even
it is for other countries, that's true, but not for America. So stop letting billionaires, stop letting Republicans or Democrats absolutely gaslight you into thinking, establishment at least. There's some, smaller factions that are America first and want to have a fair taxation system and want the top rate to be representative of the amount of opportunity and wealth that was earned in the country. Totally, right? There's people on both aisles screaming about this. But don't let mainstream media and all these powerful lobbying groups tell you that it can't be done. They are not paying their fair share. If there is something the progressives are right about with all their wacky ideas, it's that the rich are not paying their fair share in the United States. That is 100% true. Do not get gaslit. It's weird seeing on the conservative side poor people that are dependent on government subsidies or minimum wage workers or people making like 30, 40,000 a year going like, no, don't raise taxes. You can't, you're a fucking communist. Like, bro, you're a pleb. You're a poor. Your tax rate is effectively higher than the millionaire or the billionaire. A lot of them don't pay taxes. They just take loans out on the assets that they own. You think that's fair? Do you even have any idea how the tax rate works? It's insane when you really do the calculations that you somehow are paying more of a percentage of your earnings than rich people are. Come on, man. Since when do normal everyday people argue for the literal brainwashing points of the wealthy? That's like when you get hired at Walmart, you used to see those videos about like the union busting videos. They literally brainwash their workers into fearing starting a union to get better pay and, benefits. No. This is why union bad. Union means less pay overall, less job security, corruption, slowing innovation, blah, blah, blah. It's all bullshit. The reason America was so well off in like the late 40s, 50s, and 60s was its very strong unions. Almost everyone at the lower level of society was working for a union. And guess what? Wages were representative of the workers' interests. And so they did very well. And the middle class exploded in America. Then the unions got corrupt and they started siphoning money and using their influence and turned to shit. They got essentially infiltrated by wealthy groups, corporations, destroyed from the inside out, yada, yada. And then they turned into shit. Some unions today are still good, but a lot of them lost the power that they used to have. And alongside the good they used to do for the average worker. Now you work in like a, right to work states, whatever they call it, where you can get fired for no reason whatsoever. I forgot what the actual word for that was. So you can leave without a 2 weeks notice, but they could also fire you for any reason they want. Your rights have literally deteriorated as a worker. You earn way less. When you adjust for inflation, guys, you're earning less than your parents were. People don't even know that. Ford was just complaining. The CEO of Ford was complaining he can't find mechanics. They're paying $125,000 a year, something like that, 120, 125. And then when you adjust the salary for what a mechanic was getting paid in like the 50s or 60s, it's less. You're making less real money today than they were back then. Fucking hell. Yeah. And somehow people will still vote against their own interests. Remains to be seen. I think people are waking up more and more. Anyways, I'm actually curious what the comments say. I like the billionaire that said if we tax him to pay for people's healthcare, he'll move to Australia, a country that taxes people to pay for healthcare. Yeah, look at this. Competing in a race to the bottom to be the lowest bidder for a few thousand wealthy individuals, looking to pay back as little as possible is a losing proposition. Even if you win, your prize is a collection of people with no local attachment who by definition don't want to contribute. This is gold. This is kind of like the golden visas for $1 million to become a citizen of the United States that Trump is offering. It's like, let's just invite the wealthy of the world so that they could pay a fee to enter the United States and gain the privilege of being called citizens so that they can just, live in their houses, elbow you out of land, property, elbow you out by building nothing but what? They're going to invest and build luxury high-rises, luxury apartments, and buy up the houses, renovate, rent them out. They're going to use their capital to make you poor because they're competing with you against the same assets that should be available only to you. But, we're selling out our country for $1 million. Come right in, bring the rest of your wealth, and fuck every other ordinary American. This country's turning into a joke. But anyways, appreciate you guys for tuning in.